Well, there's no doubt in my mind it was a cover-up. They covered up the low temperature data. They had tremendous pressures on their launch schedule, both from a political standpoint to support their out-year budget and immediate ones to do what they already had on their plate, which was nearly impossible. And I think because of that, they did as much as they could to try to cloud this issue and make it sound more difficult and technical and hard to understand than it really should have been.
As NASA officials from Marshall Space Center were preparing their presentation for the Commission, Allen raised objections and eventually put together a separate presentation of his own.
As part of the failure team, I started mentioning and questioning some of their conclusions and data, especially the cold temperature stuff, and that they were still looking at things that I thought were not only impossible, they're ridiculous. I said, if you look at the films, you can tell that can't possibly be, like lightning strikes and all kinds of funny things. And so I raised my hand and said, well, I made an assessment. I'd be willing to present something. And even stated that I really believe that a major contributor was whatever caused this cold temperature on this one joint. And that's why that joint failed and the other 5 did not. And I'm not a big believer of coincidences. And you could have heard a pin drop. There wasn't a single person supported me. There wasn't a single person that challenged me or a single person that offered another possible scenario what caused it.
A presidential commission, the Rogers Commission, was tasked with investigating how the disaster happened. Just weeks into the Commission's inquiry, there were suspicions that NASA officials and contractors were not telling the whole truth. Commission member and famed theoretical physicist Richard Feynman turned their focus to the resiliency of the O-rings.
Well, I took this stuff that I got out of your seal and I put it in ice water. And I discovered that when you put some pressure on it for a while and then undo it, it doesn't stretch back, it stays the same dimension. In other words, for a few seconds at least, and more seconds than that, there's no resilience in this particular material when it's at a temperature of 32 degrees. I believe that has some significance for our problem.
At multiple hearings, MacDonald raised his hand and told the Commission exactly what had transpired about how the decision not to launch got changed.
And I remember Neil Armstrong says, yeah, I think we need to hear from Mr. MacDonald to cause this meeting to be here in the first place. He says he has more to talk about. And I told him about all that transpired after it got changed. And I'll never forget, I could hardly keep composed. I had done it. Dr. Sally Ride got up out of the bench, come running over to me, gave me a big hug and said, God, I'm glad somebody finally leveled with this commission. That took a hell of a lot of guts.
Upon return to work, however, MacDonald found he had been moved out of his prestigious engineering job.
And so what's my job? And they said, well, we're forming this new group on program planning, and your job's going to be head of scheduling. I said, scheduling? What the hell does scheduling? I build anything. What we build isn't what we have now. He goes, well, that's for you to figure out. It was clearly a non-job, hoping I would quit.
With time on his hands, Allen went to conferences in the field. At one event, one of the generals who was head of Air Force Space Command was surprised to see him and found out what had happened.
He said, you ought to be spending all of your time figuring out why the shuttle failed the way it did. I said, I'm not doing that anymore. He said, what do you mean anymore? You're a member of the failure team, aren't you? I said, I was, but I got taken off. You got taken off? When the hell did that happen? I said, I think it was exactly one day after I testified before you people. He said, you're kidding me. I said, no, I'm not. He said, well, that's bullshit. We'll fix that problem.
Alan MacDonald went on to join a super task force aimed at redesigning the shuttle to restore it to safe flight. The shuttle flew more than 100 successful flights after the redesign. The failure to stop the Challenger launch has become a case study for the dangers of groupthink, desensitization to risk, and the danger of putting cost-cutting and schedule deadlines over safety.
People that have to make good decision managers, and they're sometimes very tough decisions to make, should never feel comfortable that they've made the best decision unless they've used every tool in their toolkit. And the biggest tool they have in their toolkit is the brain power of the people they work with and work for them. And if they don't create an atmosphere where those people feel very comfortable to tell them issues or concerns that they may have, they've lost the most valuable data they can to make these tough decisions.
The failure of NASA to redesign or fix engineering problems when they were first raised led to a rationalization of grave risk as acceptable, especially when launch schedules and cost-cutting measures were bearing down.
But we were charging a fraction of what it was costing, and that was driving the upward momentum of launching every time on time. And that was the structural political beginning of the inevitable reduction of safety criteria. That's when we began to eat away at the edges of safety, and risk aversion became risk acceptability. And there were technical lessons and signs that were coming from even the very second shuttle mission that we could lose a crew on those boosters.
Managers have to be receptive to the concerns of engineers, who must be clear and courageous about reporting them. The pressure on the workforce to save money, time, and contracts ultimately cost 7 astronauts' lives and hastened the demise of America's space shuttle, which was retired in 2011. It remains to be seen if the US can overcome aerospace design challenges and political feuding to put women and men back into space from US soil once again, never forgetting the crucial engineering lessons learned from the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster.